Engage. Disrupt. Adapt. Repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
I am so fortunate for our monthly wrap-up to have both Erin Patten and Sonya Robinson here together to help with this wrap-up with Connect. Connect is a very important piece in the Pure Reinvention process, and I think sometimes one of the harder steps. And so by having you both here, I think this can be very helpful. I want to start, Erin, by first talking about this phrase that we were talking about before we started the podcast, organizing the chaos. What does that mean?
Organizing the chaos can mean a lot of things, but I think in this context, particularly around Ponyride, it's about allowing the chaos to be.
To encourage the chaos.
To encourage the chaos, creating a container for chaos. And, Ponyride gives people the space, the time, and the resources.
So on a macro level, right, you may have to organize the chaos, but on a micro level, you encourage the chaos to see what bubbles out of that then you can organize.
Yeah, like a lab.
So it's very much you encourage the chaos at the street level or at the lab level, let those discoveries bubble up. And then once they do, and once you do that sort, then you can organize that chaos at a macro level. I think sometimes because it seems like when we organize right at the bottom at the street level. And I think that's wrong. I think we have to let the ingenuity and the entrepreneurism and the optimism and the creativity and all those words to be a part of and how we embrace what's next, and then worry about connecting and organizing once it gets out, right? And whatever that means.
This week's episode is sponsored by Willpower Consulting. Whether it be pursuing new avenues in content delivery like podcasts or developing a sustainable content building strategy, Willpower Consulting is with you every step of the way. Get a dose of willpower at WilliamRCarlson.com or at William R. Carlson on Twitter.
Sonya, you had a really interesting question. Connect seems to be so difficult because and then you started talking about space and distance. What did you mean? Maybe I didn't ask the question right, but what did you mean by that?
Well, when you think about what we've outlined as the 5 fundamentals of pure reinvention, or any process or any program that you may be working with, whether it's new or you're trying to reinvent it, we have disrupt, we have own, you have simplify, you have connect, and then you have move. And throughout that, you're trying to build a strategy that's going to take root and grow. And through that process of connecting, whether it's trying to simplify it so other people buy into the idea, or whether it's connecting to make sure that you meet new friends and that you maintain those relationships, I was mostly focusing on, I enjoy meeting new friends, but how do I, over the course of time, make sure I maintain those relationships that remain sustainable, and that every time I go to knock on their door, they don't look at me as if, oh, here, she's back again.
Right, the relationship is starting over again.
Yes.
And I think that, Erin, I want to get you to weigh in on this, but I think that we have to put the two words that Sonya just mentioned together, the words connect and the word sustainability. I think we don't do random connect, although random might teach us something, but we're very intentional. I want to use that word because that's a word you've used a number of times. We're very intentional in what we're connecting. We have the ability to sustain. Speak a little bit about the importance of sustainability as we connect.
I think before you get to the sustainability, you have to start with the authenticity. And that was something that Dr. Matthews brought up in her interview, is that if you don't connect authentically, then it's not going to be a sustainable relationship. So.
Oh, that is such a great point. So go back and say in this timeline, right? If there is authenticity, the connect then becomes easier to do because there's a why. That to me makes so much sense, that perhaps when we struggle with connect, we have to go back and ask the question, are we being genuine? Are we being authentic? And if we are, then how do we sustain? Because you're right. If you try to sustain something that's not got its own energy or attraction, it's almost impossible because the energy level drops as soon as you remove yourself from it. It has no life beyond you. You're the energy source. When Erin, when you start to talk about authenticity, that energy resides in you and it resides in Sonya. So even when you're not together, you still have that energy. When you're together, it's easy to connect back together again to create new sustainable interactions between the you are not hard because you're not inventing the why. That's a core fundamental principle. So, this is a wonderful discovery in this conversation right here that Sonya, you just brought up. And Erin, you just taught us. Authenticity becomes the mother of connectivity.
The magnet.
It becomes the magnet. It becomes how you do it. And then maybe in a next level connect stage, you look for then collisions in how to throw those magnets together, right? Because if you get the magnets somewhere in the same vicinity, what do? They always want to go together. Mm-hmm. Even when you try to push them apart, if they're in the right vicinity, they keep coming together. In fact, isn't that the basis of starters? Connecting magnets together? I mean, I love that word. Erin, where did you come up with the word? How did you think about magnets?
When you said the energies, separate energies, I thought about sort of like the polarizations and the activations in our bodies themselves. And they are magnets. We are magnets, I think, walking magnets. And so we're just waiting for the opportunity to connect.
Isn't that amazing? That's the energy that Steve Witter was using when he knew that the magnet was anybody whose lives were touched by breast cancer. It wasn't the race. That was the magnet. That was the authenticity. Everyone knew that he was interested in creating a celebration of this thing. Happened to have a race, a well-run race, but that wasn't it. It was, Sonya, as you had asked the question, it was the understanding of what the magnet is. And if we respect the power of the magnet, just get them close. They'll do the rest. Right?
Agreed.
Just get them close. And so how many times as a leader is it our job to just get them close? So think about that. Sonya, I'm going to ask you this question. How do we get people close? How do we get things close so we let the magnet, as Erin talked about, really do its own work?
Someone asked me a similar question in a different vein yesterday. They had a challenge, and they were trying to figure out how to communicate their challenge with that issue. And they were going to start by writing an email. As I was reading the email, I was like, the tone is totally off. And how can I rephrase it? Well, I can't do it in an email. Well, you have to connect with her face to face.
Yes.
To discuss what the challenge is, that your opinion, what your ideas are in this particular area. So I guess as part of the connect, you got to move, which is the immediate next step that we've identified in peer reinvention. Once you've identified an opportunity, identify the who's that can support that, or the what's that can support that. And then we are now in the next step of the move, or to at least talk about what the move will be.
I have to think about how Pure Reinvention is so fortunate to have run into Erin Patten. And yet, if our relationship was just about sharing emails, we would not have the same relationship. And I think the opportunity was to share authenticities. So it wasn't about genders, and it wasn't about, whether you look the same or behave the same. In fact, in all cases, you could say that Erin and I are complete opposites. But what we share is our magnet. What we share is what pulls us together. And what connects things together is that authenticity at its core. And then I would suggest, and Erin, I want you to weigh in on this, the competitive advantage is that we're not the same. So what does that mean?
I mean, that's Darwin at his finest. It's diversity, and diversity breeds adaptability, and adaptability breeds success for the species. And so I think that by bringing us together, we can't be the same, for us to succeed. We have to bring our differences, because those are the pieces to the puzzle. We all have the magnets within us and the skills that are unique to us. And we just have to figure out how to put them together.
If you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter @Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.